Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on my channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the best brawlers in 2023 at one given point. So this isn't going to be the most consistent brawler. This is just going to be the most broken brawler at a given point. You know, the Charlies, the Cordeliuses, etc, etc. So seeing as it's getting close to 2024, I thought I'd give you guys a good recap. So let's jump right into it. So starting off the ranking at number 10, we have Squeak. So Squeak has definitely had his cheesy metas in the past. Last year it was due to his residue gadget. However, in 2023 it's a lot different because that wasn't the reason why Squeak was completely meta. So if you rewind back to the 27th of June, Squeak received a buff to his star power chain reaction. So the extra damage from each shot, it went from 10% to 20% extra damage, which was just absolutely insane. So essentially Squeak had no weaknesses. For a long time he was actually overlooked, while people quickly realized that he was actually a lot stronger. This buff was insane. It essentially meant he had no weaknesses, as he could free shot so many of his counters and he could just run through the meta. Of course, his residue gadget was still a huge reason for his uprise, as he could shut down one area for 10 seconds, leaving him and his teammates with so much control, and it led to a lot of spawn trapping. However, he was just running through competitive for a few months, mainly because again his attack damage was just so strong, and then it also just took Brawl Stars 2 months to nerf his star power and residue gadget. It went from 10 seconds to 8 seconds, and then the star power went to 20% to 15% in the added bonus damage. But still, Squeak is considered one of the best brawlers in the game. It's definitely in the A tier, mainly because of the extra gadget gear. So even though they nerfed the residue gadget, they added this gadget gear, which just made it even more toxic. So now he's got 4 residues to use. So overall, Squeak was insanely strong this year. So next up, as the 9th most broken brawler in 2023, we had RT. So it's fair to say that RT has had his fair share of metas, with him shining on multiple occasions. It actually all started off before RT's release, where he was so strong on the dev build, they had to nerf him just 1 hour before sneak peeks. He dealt 1,500 damage and had 7,200 HP, which probably would have made him the best brawler of all time. However, they then nerfed him down to 1,050 damage and 6,200 HP. But still on release, he was an insanely strong brawler and super versatile, always coming at the top of my brawler ranking videos. Another insane thing about him was that his super had pretty much no delay to it, so you could quickly spam your Jackie style attacks and deal at least 9k damage with 1 ammo. So any Mortis, any aggro brawler would just get deleted instantly. This quickly led to him being one of the best brawlers for a long time, and it was impossible to kill RT if you were any type of aggro brawler. It then took them 2 months to nerf RT back on the 25th of April. It was nerfed twice, one to his HP in both forms by 5%, and then a 100% increase in the delay between attacks, meaning you couldn't just shred through everything up close. It was a really meaningful nerf because it definitely made his super a lot less powerful. However, around the 5th of September, there was a game-breaking bug with Crimson RT. It was only specific to that skin, which was a Brawl Pass skin, which meant he could attack twice. It was like he had his super and his main attack at once. So if a brawler got close to him, he could deal 4.7k damage instantly to that brawler. So it just made him a sniper machine and an up close machine without his super, which was just absolutely insane. It made him so broken. They fixed the bug a few days later. However, RT has always been considered as an A tier brawler and one of the strongest brawlers of all time due to his consistency at the top of the meta. So next up, as the 8th best brawler in 2023, we have Meg and her rework. So Meg was one of the worst brawlers and least played brawlers for the longest time, up until the 25th of April, when Brawl Stars decided to surprisingly rework Meg. No one expected this. There were a lot of big changes to Meg. So to begin with, Meg would just start off in her mech form, which already was a big change because, of course, before Meg, she used to be really small and really easy to take down. And also, when you respawn, you're in mech as well. So you're pretty much in mech all of the time, which I really like this change. Also, there was no longer any health decay, and you was able to heal up whilst in mech. So two big changes. That was definitely one thing that caught my eye. And also your super didn't charge automatically anymore. So to balance out these changes, they decreased her mech HP and also main and super damage. But this wasn't enough to stop the Meg meta. This made Meg extremely strong as she had 6k HP, which was a lot at the time, paired with great range, strong damage, and a good healing gadget, and a broken star power. So even when you killed her in mech, she had a 35% damage reduction for 30 seconds. This made Meg the go-to option for months, as it took a while for Brawl Stars to fully resume balance in Meg. It took them until a few weeks later on the 15th of May to nerf her star power heavily. However, this didn't really do a lot because it was still so hard to kill Meg in her mech form, because she was literally always in that mech. Eventually, she got nerfed again on the 6th of June by 7.5% in her max HP, which definitely did turn her down a little bit, and they nerfed her healing and gadget, jolting volts, and this was enough to restore balance, as for the longest time, people considered her weak again, but it's only recently where people have just discovered how strong Meg still is. She's still in around the A tier because of her fundamentals, right? She's just so hard to kill. Those snipers in game modes like Knockout and Bounty take like 6 or 7 shots to kill her. So for me, Meg since the rework has been such an insane brawler. So next up, as the 7th most broken brawler in 2023, we have Cordelius, especially upon release. So Cordelius on release was absolutely insane. He basically always had super and he could cycle it so fast. His rise to fame took a little longer though, because his short range was a lot different to other brawlers and his quirky mechanics, so it took a little bit longer for people to master him and realize his true potential. But it wasn't long till Cordelius was everywhere. He was trapping people for fun. The main reason why he was so broken though, there's actually quite a few reasons actually. You could charge your super again in the Shadow Realm, so you'd use your super, you'd shoot opponents and you'd recharge up another super, so even if you didn't get your super again in the Shadow Realm, it wouldn't take long to then trap someone again. But again, even if you cycled your super in the Shadow Realm, you could actually just use it again onto the same opponent, so keeping them infinitely trapped in that Shadow Realm, and just made it so you could abuse that matchup even more and win with ease. You could also use your mute gadget in the Shadow Realm, which lasted 1.5 seconds, which was just insane, and the healing star power as well. It healed you up so much, and if you got that same opponent trapped in the Shadow Realm maybe 2 or even 3 times, the healing potential with that star power was insane. You could never ever lose a 1v1. It was crazy. He was also everywhere in Showdown with so many cheesy strategies. The main strategy was getting you and a tank, mainly Frank, in the Shadow Realm, trapped infinitely until the end of the game. So of course, if you and a Frank was in that Shadow Realm for the duration of the match, no one could attack you. It just meant for free trophies. It was so cheesy. It took Supercell over a month to nerf him 4 times back in the 15th of August. So essentially, the main nerfs was that you could no longer use your super in the Shadow Realm, which meant you couldn't just infinitely trap opponents, and also you no longer charged your super in the Shadow Realm. So it meant that you definitely had to be a lot more cautious about using your supers, and also the poison mushroom gadget got nerfed a few times as well. However, since these nerfs, he's still considered really strong in the meta, as I've had him pretty much in my top 5 since his nerfs. He's still super versatile and actually gained a lot more usage since hypercharges got released, as he's one of the best counters to them. So Cordelius is just everywhere since his introduction into Brawl Stars. Next, as his 6th most broken brawler in 2023, we have Shelly and the speed buff that she received back in April this year. So, Shelly for the longest time was actually known as one of the worst brawlers in the game. This was until she received a huge buff to her speed. It went from normal to super fast. So this buff was actually overlooked by the majority, and it took until a few months until Reply Totem, who are a pro team, they abused Shelly in pro play at the ESL Masters event in Japan and won the World Finals essentially, because they were one of the few teams that believed in the Shelly hype. And then after this, everybody just abused Shelly because it was very evident just how strong she was. She could win every matchup just by simply juking out the opponents. Combine this with her sniper clay pigeons gadget and a 4.5 second shell shock star power, it made her unstoppable. So Shelly was finally nerfed on the 6th of June. She received 2 nerfs, one to her HP by 2%, which was just pitiful, it was terrible, and then a star power slow nerf from 4.5 seconds to 2 seconds. That did a lot, but again, this was nowhere near enough because Shelly actually had one of the best competitive stats I've ever seen in a monthly final throughout all regions. Probably the best of all time. It was crazy. So she had a 90% win rate, and you can see by the other stats as well, provided by this beautiful graphic from Kenny, by the way. She was insane. One of the, honestly, she was so underrated still, but with a 90% win rate, how could people still underrate her? It then took until the 15th of August to finally nerf her movement speed from very fast to fast, which was very long overdue. But again, it didn't take long for her to regain her spot at the top of the meta, as she was one of the first brawlers to get a hypercharge, and this made her broken again. She could just cycle supers like crazy, meaning that her hypercharge would be charged much quicker, and it just led to so many overwhelming moments. You now realize how strong hypercharge is. It just meant she was getting crazy speed boosts, damage boosts, and it made her unstoppable again. She later got a hefty nerf though on the 24th of October. Her super recharge rate was decreased by 46%, meaning that she could no longer just spam supers. But Shelly's reign was no longer over because she's still considered an A-tier brawler, but just not as broken as before. Next up, as the 5th most broken brawler in 2023, this placement might surprise some people, but seriously, Edgar's hypercharge was completely broken. So this was only released back on the 12th of December, so only a few weeks. But it was crazy. It just wasn't as noticeable as other brawlers and other mechanics because it was behind a paywall, so you had to pay with gems, and a lot of gems at that, or you had to get super lucky in your hypercharge event and hope that you got this hypercharge for free. But yeah, the hypercharge was released a few weeks ago, and it had crazy potential. The reason why it placed so highly was, again, the team wipe potential. That's what makes some hypercharges good. You look at Lou's hypercharge, for example, you look at Fang's, and this was just a prime reason why hypercharge was so broken. It was so hard to stop at hypercharge Edgar, even on maps like Shooting Star. I was just abusing Edgar for days in Masters Power League. If you watch my streams, it was so funny because people were underestimating him time and time again, and I would just pick Edgar everywhere. And the most broken thing about it is that you could charge your hypercharge for free with a Let's Fly gadget. So essentially, you could pop that gadget at the beginning of a game, you could just jump into any opponent, and then when you spawn, pop another gadget, and you have a free hypercharge. And then that hypercharge just meant you could team wipe or at least get multiple kills with that hypercharge, and it just made it so cheesy. You could essentially get 2, 3, 4 Edgar hypercharges in one game, and there's nothing that you could do about it in a 1v1. Again, the community just completely underestimated it. Time and time again, I told people how broken it was, and it wasn't until Supercell later nerfed this 6 days later, and yeah, they nerfed it so his hypercharge rate was decreased by 38%, essentially meaning he would only maybe get 1 or 2 hypercharges in a game. But for a short period of time, for those 6 days, I was having so much fun in Power League and Ladder just abusing Edgar whilst everyone was still confused and still underestimating this brawler. There were so many cheesy strategies. For example, I was going in Knockout and using Ruffs and Edgar, and what it meant was just which Edgar would have the most HP in the end and which Edgar just, you know, dominated the other team. It was literally an Edgar versus an Edgar battle every single game on Ladder. It was insane, and definitely proud that meta is back in the past behind us because it was so toxic. So next up, as the 4th most broken brawler in 2023, we have Hank. Believe it or not, Hank on release was insanely broken. If you compare it to how he is right now, it's actually hilarious how big of a difference there is in his ranking in the meta, because previously, he's one of the best brawlers this year, right? And right now, he's one of the worst brawlers in the game. He dealt some insane damage at 3k damage per shot, which this was before all of the changes. That was insane. His star power gave him a 20% speed boost, which made it easy to suffocate players into spawn and push them all the way back. He also was invisible whilst charging his bubble in a bush, so he could charge up his 3k shot so easily, and you know, you could be starting to walk towards a bush and then there's a Hank. He just pops you, he just one-shots you. It's insane. Also could heal up whilst charging his attack, which made it so easy to keep up constant pressure because he was constantly building up that 3k shot. The opponents really had no time to breathe whatsoever. But the most broken thing was actually a bug with Hank. His damage scaling was bugged, so he would deal some insane damage with things like the damage gear, 8-bit turret, rough super, etc. So just a few numbers just to really reiterate how broken this was. You know, Hank with an 8-bit turret used to deal 6,750 damage, which was insane at the time. That could one-shot so many brawlers. And simply Hank with a rough street would deal 4,300 damage, which in current terms is 5,000 damage, which is insane. And if you combined, you know, roughs, damage gear, 8-bit turret, and Hank all together, you could deal 10,000 damage to an opponent. That was absolutely insane. He was dominating the game so much that even on maps like Shooting Star, he was insane. But Hank finally received some nerfs on the 12th of June, 5 days after his release, which fixed bugs and nerfed his HP by 17%. But it just wasn't enough, because he then received more nerfs on the 27th of June, which later pretty much killed Hank. They made it so he was now visible in a bush whilst charging his attack, and that he no longer healed whilst charging his bubble. These two mechanics killed Hank, completely killed him. Even after 5 buffs since those nerfs, he's still considered to be one of the worst brawlers in the game. But for some time, Hank was seriously broken. Next up, as the third most broken brawler in 2023, we have Fang and his hypercharge meta plus his super damage buff meta, which actually, all things considered, started on the 5th of September. That's when Fang started to become meta. He received a buff to his super damage. This in turn increased Fang's super recharge rate, so it made it a lot easier to cycle his supers. This also led to his fresh kick star power being a lot easier to get value from, because of course that super damage buff just means he's able to get kills with his super a lot easier, and this quickly made Fang minimum a top 3 brawler in the meta. I put him as the best brawler in the game once he received that buff. But then around the 24th of October, so a month ago, after the buff, he received a nerf, which still after the nerf, he was still pretty strong and steady in the meta because they only nerfed his main attack damage. The main problem was with his super. But this is when things got ridiculously broken. Fang got his hypercharge on the 12th of December. Even in the Brawl Talk prior to its release, everyone just took a look at it and knew how broken this hypercharge was going to be. Of course, here's a few reasons as to why this hypercharge was broken. You probably knew already if you played the game a few weeks ago, but the reason why is because it went through walls, which solved his biggest weakness. His biggest weakness was walls, and the fact that this super could go through walls and just bounce through players was just ridiculous. He charged his hypercharge nearly halfway with his fresh kick star power. It was insane. You get a kill with your super, with fresh kicks, and you essentially near enough got a hypercharge for free. So you're able to get like 3-4 hypercharges in a game, which was stupid. His stat buffs were insane as well, and it made his super damage even higher, so he would just chain across the map with ease. Fang took over the meta and got team wipe after team wipe after team wipe. He's one of the most hated brawlers for this reason, because his super chaining just took no skill, because you'd automatically go from one brawler to the next and you could just spam that super button and get infinite kills. It was so ridiculous, but they later nerfed it 6 days later. His hypercharge rate was decreased by 50%, so it takes a long time to get his hypercharge now, but it was definitely needed. And the shield on his hypercharge was nerfed from 25% to 15%. So to this day, Fang is still considered an S tier brawler, but that hypercharge upon release was completely broken. So now moving on to the second best brawler of 2023, we have the new brawler which was released 3 days ago for £30, but it was Kit. Kit is literally the most broken brawler in the meta right now, but I think it's extremely clear right now just how broken Kit is in many ways. People are getting free rank 30s, free rank 35s through many cheesy strategies. There's multiple ways to push this broken brawler. It's insane. as I went on a 80-game win streak, as you've probably seen a few days ago. It was just so clear to me how broken Kit was. So there's a few reasons as to why Kit is broken. So the first one is a gadget that gives you Leon super for 5 seconds, and it speeds up your super charge rate. Like, that's just crazy dumb broken. Given like Leon super lasts 6 seconds already, yeah, just give Kit a gadget that has that capability. It's insane. A super like Edgar's, but it's impossible to nearly miss. And then when you land on an opponent, it freezes them for 2 seconds and deals a little bit of damage. So you're also immune to taking damage whilst you're supered onto an opponent, and your teammates can quickly follow up and confirm their kills. So broken. He can easily climb on any teammate, especially tanks, for 15 seconds and heal them for 600 per second, which is just insane. And also, whilst you're on top of a teammate, you can deal 4k damage per shot. So literally two shots can pretty much kill every single brawler in the game. It's just crazy. And the funny thing is, they tried to market Kit as a support brawler, the first legendary support brawler, but Kit is far from a support brawler. Kit is the carry brawler as an assassin, because you can just jump on opponents so easily and get kills every single time. And Kit is a damage dealer because you can deal 8k damage with 2 shots. It's insane. And it's also a showdown bug where if you have 7 or 8 power cubes, you can instantly cycle your super over and over again and keep people into a stun lock. So Kit potentially could be the best brawler of the year, but it's only been 3 days, so I'm unsure I want to give Kit that title. But seriously, Kit is so broken right now. So now moving on to the most broken brawler in 2023, I think it's very clear to me it has to be Charlie. So Charlie was only released a couple of months ago on the 6th of November. At first, not many people believed that she would be this game breaking. You know, when I was doing sneak peeks, I thought she'd be strong, but nowhere near as strong as she was on release. However, it didn't take people long to realize just how truly broken Charlie was on release. Me specifically, I gemmed her in the Brawl Pass and she literally broke the game. I remember loading up Power League and I just won every single game. And, you know, I'm a decent player, but Charlie was doing everything. She was so completely broken. It was ridiculous. I was playing on every map and mode. So there's a few reasons as to why she was broken. To begin with, she has a super fast unload speed, so it meant at close range she could just shred through opponents, just spamming auto aim as well. It was insane. It would only take you 5 hits to get your super, so the cycling was insane. But of course, the best thing was her super. You literally used to cocoon people for 10 seconds. That's insane. 10 seconds in a cocoon, being able to do nothing. And then also, whilst you're out of cocoon, you have no ammo and 50% of your health is taken away from you with the digestive star power. What could you even do? It was impossible. It was so unfair. And not only that, to top things off, she had a broken Spiders gadget which had 2400 HP with every single one. It was just insane. It took them 3 days for her to get an emergency nerf. Her super duration went from 10 seconds to 7 seconds, and also the digestive star power went from 50% health reduction to 25%. But these nerfs was simply nowhere near enough, because during the World Finals, she had a 100% ban rate, which is the very first in a long time. 80 sets and 80 bans. You just can't argue with the stats. The pros knew how broken she was. She again got 4 nerfs recently, which definitely helped out a lot this time around. However, I'd still consider her to be an A-tier brawler at least. And I think Charlie has to be easily in the top 5 most broken brawlers of all time. Probably top 3, only maybe like Rosa and Leon being as strong as Charlie has ever been. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know whether I missed out any brawlers in the comment section below. And did you like this type of video? It took me a long time to script. Also, make sure you have a good New Year's. I'll be upping the content a lot as usual. So, that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.